Hey folks, welcome to the Battles of the First World War podcast. Okay, so we're recording this in the middle of October 2024, counting down the last weeks of a momentous presidential election here in the US. So let's talk politics. Not the kind of politics that you think, though. Tonight, we're here with some very special returning and new guests to discuss how close we are to getting the Congressional Gold Medal awarded to the Hello Girls of World War I. So we again have a call to action. For listeners of this podcast located in the United States, it is time to take political action and ask those remaining Congress members who have not yet agreed to do so to award the Congressional Gold Medal to the Hello Girls of World War I. When the United States sent millions of her doughboys over there to fight on the World War I battlefields of Belgium and France, she also sent over 200 American women soldiers as well. These were not nurses or ambulance drivers assigned to dangerous work both near and well behind the front. These were the U.S. Army's first women soldiers, assigned as battlefield tactical communications specialists close to the battlefront. Their skills were absolutely critical to the conduct of the American Expeditionary Forces combat operations. These Hello Girls were also quite literally the connection to diplomatic dialogue between the American command and its allies, as well as a vital link to the AEF's logistical operations as well. When these brave women returned to the U.S. well after the First World War ended, their vital role was quickly forgotten and their efforts to be recognized ignored for decades. The Hello Girls were finally recognized as U.S. Army soldiers in the late 1970s, with some of the last survivors receiving their discharge forms in 1979. Today, while other groups of female service members have been recognized, the Hello Girls have not, and they are very much overdue. So today, we have a distinguished group of guests joining for a conversation on the Hello Girls and the pressing need for the Congressional Gold Medal. Joining us this evening are Congressman Emanuel Cleaver, representing Missouri's 5th Congressional District and the original sponsor of H.R. 1572, the Hello Girls Congressional Gold Medal Act of 2023. We have Dan Dayton, former Executive Director of the U.S. World War I Centennial Commission. Catherine Bourgin, granddaughter of Hello Girl Marie Edmee LeRoux. Carolyn Timbie, granddaughter of Hello Girls Chief Operator Grace Banker. Chris Christopher, Captain, United States Navy, retired, U.S. World War I Centennial Commission. Diane Betcher, Captain, United States Navy, retired, genealogical researcher. It's going to be a great show, and listen for that call to action, folks. Let your voice be heard, and let's honor the Hello Girls. Folks, welcome to the Battles of the First World War podcast. It's a very exciting time. We are so close to reaching the number of sponsors needed to get the Hello Girls the recognition they deserve. And this evening, we will begin with Representative Emanuel Cleaver. Representative Cleaver, thank you so very much for taking the time to come on the podcast.
Look, I appreciate the fact that you guys have lifted this issue, which is, to me, one of the most significant issues that we have not dealt with. And I appreciate, you're using this podcast to present a voice that apparently has been heard.
Sir, since your time as mayor of Kansas City, you've worked to highlight and honor the legacy of those who served in World War I. Can you talk about why that's important to you and the people of Kansas City and Western Missouri?
Well, history won't be history unless it is an inclusive history. And so it's something else if it's not inclusive. And frankly, we don't get very much attention for some of the things that happened in the Midwest as they do on the coast, the East, West, and to some degree the North Coast. And so we here in the middle of the country, the people at the end of World War One went to great expense raising money, kids taking pennies and dimes to school to build what was called the Liberty Memorial. And even though uh, African Americans were for the most part excluded from the battles, um, there were those who participated. One of them, a guy by the name of Wayne Minor, who was killed, either the last person or one of the last two or three people killed in the war while the war still lasted. So I got interested in very, very uh, uh, pumped up about trying to make sure that we didn't leave anybody out of the things that happened that helped us preserve this nation for unborn generations. So I'm actually one of the people who would label you guys as heroes and sheroes because of what you've done in keeping this issue alive.
What was the gentleman's name who interested you, sir? Wayne Minor?
Wayne Minor.
Wayne
We
Minor.
had public housing in Kansas City named after him. He was an African American. We've not been able for years and decades. People have been looking for his family and have not found them. But he was in France and uh, went out on a mission that he didn't need to go, where he volunteered to go, and ended up being killed hours and hours before the end of the war. And so for Black America, there were not many individuals that we could look up to for having the opportunity to fight for the nation, even if it was not an equal uh, population in the country at the time. And so I became very interested in him, and my son right now is who's an actor is contemplating looking at and may be able to produce a movie about Wayne Minor because there's nothing done, and I think um, lesser figures have gotten more recognition.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Sir, we all believe that the Hello Girls are deserving. Would could you talk a little bit about their impact on the nation and why you think they've earned a Congressional Gold Medal?
Well, it follows with what I said earlier. Look, there were a lot of people who helped preserve this nation in World War One, and unfortunately, some of them, like Wayne Minor and women, were not really lifted up for the contribution they made, and the contributions were significant. When you look at the Hello Girls, I think most people think that's a Broadway show, and that's what when as I've gone around asking for my colleagues, Republican and Democrat, to sign onto the legislation. So wait a minute, I don't know if I want to get on something. This looks like it might be a little risque, but they were known, I think, originally as the Signal Corps female telephone operators, and they were recruited by General Pershing, General John Pershing, in about 1917 as the first group of women to hold non-medical positions in the U.S. Army. And so they played a major role because when you look at the role that telecommunications played in battles at that time, it was significant. I mean, we didn't have spy planes and drones and so forth at the time. So it was telecommunications. And General Pershing wanted some experienced individuals in Europe who could improve communications on the front line. And as the telephone operator field uh, was dominated by women, General Pershing made the decision, I think it was revolutionary at the time, to form this specialized unit comprised solely of women. And those women came to be known as the Hello Girls. You answered the phone, hello, and they were the Hello Girls. And so it was required that the women be bilingual. This is just absolutely amazing. And somebody's got to do a movie on this. The women had to be bilingual in French and English so that they could effectively communicate with and coordinate. They actually were doing coordinate with the American and the French forces. And so by the end of the war, the Hello Girls had connected, the estimate is about 26 million calls in support of the war effort. And and they continued to serve in Europe and to help organize the return back to the U.S. of many of the individuals who were on the front lines. And so these women were not walking around in white doing nothing. I mean, these were heroes and sheroes who went out and put their lives on the line. This is not like they were doing this in the Waldorf Astoria of Paris. They were actually on the front lines. And if the enemy had been able to locate their uh, spot of work, those women would have been killed. And I don't think there would have been a second thought by the Germans to back away from an assault, a deadly assault, where those women were handling the issues of communication. I am awed by these women, these sheroes, and so we started working, trying to get the Congress to do the recognition. And let me tell you, I've been in Congress 20 years, and getting a congressional medal for anybody is difficult, extremely difficult, because you got to do it person to person. And uh, and when you look at the atmosphere, I'll say the political atmosphere in our country, it's not that healthy. And if you think it's not healthy out in the country, come in and stand around in the halls of Congress. This would be WW, whatever the fighting group, WW something. This would be it, except the fights right now, thank God, are only verbal. But it's not an easy job to get something like this done. But I did my little dance a couple of weeks ago when the Senate passed the bill, and I still have a little left on my dance. And if it, I usually don't dance on Wednesdays or Thursdays, so I can't do it for you guys now. But I'll catch you on a Friday or Saturday. Uh, and so now I'm going to the floor, and when people see me coming, they start running. They call me the Hello Guy girls. And so I didn't know I was going to end up getting a name in this effort, but I'm really uh, happy that I'm doing it. It's a joy. I've got to get 290 signatures, and I think we are right at the front door. Uh, had we still been in session during the month of no, September, um, we probably would have what we need. But we were there shortly in September. We'll not be there at all in October unless something happens and we're called in because of the battering the hurricanes in the southeast area of the country. And if we need to appropriate $20 more billion, I think we might be called in. But considering the fact that we are not in session, it's just amazing that we're very, very close to getting the signatures we need. And then I'll even dance on a Wednesday uh, once we get this done.
That's that's awesome. I can't wait to I hope we're all able to see that dance soon. Sir, when you mentioned that the Congressional Gold Medal, getting awarded one is extremely difficult. And I know you're kind of short for time here, but can you talk a little bit about what it means to receive one, and also the process to pass one into law?
Well, first of all, the difficulty is uh, maybe first and foremost the restrictions, and one of them, the one that's very difficult, excuse me, for us to get by, is that there are only 5 Congressional Gold Medals passed every Congress. That's like every 2 years, a term, and so it's always competitive, because you got other people who are trying to get bills passed as well, and it includes both chambers. So it is not by any means an easy task, and so you have even though I have not been turned down at all, not one single time. It's the problem is getting around to everybody. And if you watch, if anybody watching your podcast will, if they have ever watched on C-SPAN, the members of Congress when we were in the chamber voting, it looks like a beehive. I mean, people just are moving around, and which is one of the other problems we'll talk about maybe at another time. People are trying to talk to people, and it's difficult to talk to people and vote. And so you add talk to people, vote, and then try to get people to sign. They have to sign their name, their district, before it's acceptable. So, um, people are not, sitting around waiting. I wonder who's going to bless me today to ask me to sign my name and, put my name on this and then my district and so forth. So it's not easy. I don't want any of your viewers to think that it is easy. I mean, it sounds easy. I can assure you that 99% of the members don't want to get involved in it in terms of being the leader to go around and talk with people. So Sam Graves and I took this on, and Sam is a Republican friend of mine. I know that's weird in these times, but he's a friend of mine, and we are probably taking the load of it because he has one of the biggest jobs in Congress. He's the chair of the Transportation Committee, and that's one of the biggest issues we're dealing with right now, and will be for a few decades to come. So I'm having to do it pretty much alone, but I have to have a co-sponsor from the other party because I'm a Democrat, which means I'm in the minority, and there are going to be no bills passed with the name of a Democrat as the primary sponsor, because Republicans control the House. And so it's an unwritten rule. That's just the way it is. I don't like it. But we can talk about my dislike of that later. It's the reality. And Sam Graves, representative of Missouri, the district over from mine, has agreed to do this, and he's been very, very kind. Uh, and he did that because I took his daughter to the White House and pretended that she was my daughter so I could get her into the White House Christmas party. That's another whole issue. Secret Service people were scared to try to stop us because I think all of them could think, boy, this is going to be on the front page of the New York Times. Uh, how Secret Service prevented a man from taking his daughter into the White House Christmas party. So Sam and I are good friends. You can tell if I about our friendship if he had the nerve to ask me to do it. I intend to work very, very hard. Sharice Davids, whose mother was military, is also one of the co-sponsors, and then Nancy Mace, uh, uh, you know, uh, did previously introduce a Hello Girls Congressional Medal Act. But I would imagine that by mid-November, before we go home for Thanksgiving, we will have the necessary required names of members. We'll have more than 290 co-sponsors.
And sir, what for folks listening to the podcast, this is going to be released as just as soon as I can get it released. For folks listening who are here in the U.S., what can they do to help things reach that point?
Well, it never hurts to call your member of Congress, and the chances are, probably 8 out of 10 members you call will say I'm already signed up, because most of them, I mean, we have 290, and we only have right now 435 members of Congress. So we almost, when you look at 290, we're pretty much in charge of getting this significant bill passed. And I think the public can either now or later, find out if their member was one of the co-sponsors, and just call and thank them for it. And then I'm going to spend some time, and I'm very serious about this. I don't know a single producer or director in Hollywood, but I'm gonna go out and try as hard as I can to interest someone in writing and producing this extremely important piece of legislation. Uh, we, you know, Nobody should be excluded from history. Not women,
Mhm.
not men, not short people, not people who can't dance. I mean, nobody should be excluded. And so right now, I think I mean, we as the United members of citizens of the United States, we cannot say that we have not excluded people in the winning of World War I. And this is one effort to erase that problem and put this up as another step forward toward an inclusive history of the United States.
Fantastic. That's super cool. Sorry, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast, and I look forward to getting the message out. We're all going to talk a bit more, and then hopefully look forward to getting to that finish line so we can see that we can see the Hello Girls get the recognition they
Yeah,
deserve.
we're going to do it. We're going to do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome, sir. Thank you so much, and I certainly hope you are able to dance on a Wednesday once we
Yes. All right. Thank you. Good to talk to you.
take care, sir. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. So for everyone else here, so that we can get uh Representative Cleaver to do that dance on a Wednesday, which I've got to say I'm sold now, and I will do everything I can to make that happen. So I had a question here of how close are we to getting passage of the Congressional Gold Medal Award to the Hello Girls of World War One? So it sounds like the Senate has passed, and we have 280 representatives in the House of Representatives who have signed on. Anyone here that would like to add to that?
No, I think we're only about 10 votes short in the House. So we're very close in terms of co-sponsorships. Once that gets at and it has, as you pointed out, already passed in the Senate. So I think we're very close, and presumably when the House comes back in session, they'll be able to move it.
This is also one of those issues that obviously we all know it's a presidential election. Politics are a bit supercharged at this moment, but it also comes across as this is a very bipartisan issue. These are
Yeah,
this is
bipartisan sponsors in both in the House and in the Senate. Senators Blackburn and Tester in the Senate led the charge over there. And you just heard Mr. Cleaver talk about his relationships and how he's getting that done.
that's
So
fantastic.
yes, it is bipartisan in both houses.
Something refreshing to hear and to
It
see
is.
happening. Like we can do it. We can
It
do it.
is, and it's he touched on this a bit. It's about righting a wrong from 100 years ago. This is about remedy is probably the wrong word, but it's about recognizing those women who were not accorded the honors that they deserved 100 years ago. So it really is a systemic wrong. It's not about 220 women. It's about women who participated in that war and women of the United States who were represented by them, who the country failed, and we needed to right that wrong. So that's why the World War I Centennial Commission voted unanimously to support this bill many months ago, and has renewed its efforts and kept up the pressure, for several years. This is, I think, the third Congress we're in. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So the congressman is right. This is not an easy thing to do, but when you tell the story, and when they are receptive to that, and you're able to tell the story, I've had the same experience he has. No one has said no to me when I finally got their attention and explained the situation.
Along with getting this final push to get the Congressional Gold Medal passed, we have some new discoveries as well. So new discoveries regarding some of the women who served as Hello Girls during World War One. And Captain Becher, I believe you've had a part in that, in making that discovery.
Mhm.
Could you tell us about that?
Sure, sure. So, with an effort to try to track down all the women who served, and just for clarity, it was nearly 300 women who trained. Some women were literally on the ship, ready to set sail when the armistice was signed, and they were asked to stay on the ship just in case they were needed later. So, we do talk about the women who served in France, but the women who trained and were ready to ship were they also served. And so, working with the National Cemetery Administration of the Department of Veterans Affairs, looking to make sure that these women have properly marked graves. And so, tracking down where they lived their lives after service, and then where they settled and passed away and were buried, was part of my task in this. Being an amateur genealogist, I lent my skills and my efforts and my time to this, and I was tracking down a particular Hello girl. Her name's Renee Mezelin, and she's from Chicago. And I was confused. Some of her records didn't make sense to me. And so I started, going back to go forward, which is what you have to do. So I couldn't find her. She claimed to have been born in Marseille. She was a French citizen when she enlisted, became one of the first of the first group to go over. She was one of the supervisors, so the second in rank behind Chief Operator Baker. And I couldn't find her. I couldn't find her immigration to the United States. I couldn't find any record of her in the 1910 census. And so I started tracking down the person that she listed as her next of kin, who she claimed was a woman named Mamie Rich, who lived in Chicago. And she listed her as her aunt. And so I thought, okay, well, let me find Mamie and find where Mamie's from, and then I can figure out, whether it's a brother or a sister, or where Renee was, how she was related to Mamie. And as I started digging into it, I discovered Mamie was African American. She was enumerated as such. Her first husband was actually a union organizer, a community organizer, and And her second husband's name was Frederick, and so that's what was her name when Renee enlisted. And I soon came just face to face with an overwhelming amount of evidence that Renee Meslin had not been born in Marseille, France, but instead had been born in Chicago, Illinois, as Ella Rain Caldwell, the youngest child of a prominent African American couple in Chicago. And she is now the first documented African American woman to serve in the US Army during World War I. The other women who followed her, the other African American women who followed were nurses, and they did come afterwards. But she kept this secret. She passed as white. She passed as French among a bunch of women who were actually born in France and born in Belgium. And so she was so brilliant that she was able to be fluent in French, be an expert telephone operator in that she was easily a supervisor in the first group and quickly was promoted to chief operator. And then she lived this really incredible life even after the Army. She became a radio actor and a movie actor. And so when the representative talks about a movie, I think about Ella Rain Caldwell, Renee Meslin, who has this extraordinary American story of being born African American, but so wanting to serve her country that she was willing to step away from her family, which she must have because her husband was white, and she could not have shared with, we don't know, maybe she did, but probably not. And so she walked away from her family in order to serve in the army and to serve her country. And the other interesting thing was that her first husband was French. And in the early 1900s, women actually lost their citizenship. American women
Right.
lost their citizenship if they married a foreigner.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she was asked about her background, she said, I am a French citizen. And she was, even though she had been born in Chicago, she was a French citizen because her first husband had been French. So it's an amazing story. There are other amazing stories of the women and their lives after the Army. Um, I would say that these were extraordinary people in a really interesting time in history, and they were going to serve. They were going to live lives of adventure. They were going to live lives of service, and nothing was going to stand in their way.
I have so I just have to say this for folks who've been listening to the podcast for a long time, like everybody knows I do this. So I promise I'll just try to say this once, but like, wow. Wow. What a story. This is amazing. And I mean this right here could be the film. This could be the film on the Hello Girls right there, like through her eyes.
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
what a story. But again, like as you say, that commitment to serving her country and like absolutely nothing was going to stop her. So I'm just
Yeah.
fascinated. I'd love to like God, I'd love to learn more as you learn more, no doubt. I'm sure your research hasn't finished yet. So God, what a story. And people sometimes ask me like, like, do you have a lot to talk about on World War One? Like, are you kidding? Like,
There's so much. There's so
yeah.
much. Yeah.
So that's there, these are some of the new things we're learning about the Hello Girls, which makes them even more dynamic. What other steps are being taken to honor individual Hello Girls? I think you made a mention of like of getting graves properly marked for
Mhm.
them as veterans.
Yeah, so if Chris wants to jump in, I will tell you, like I said, working with the National Cemetery Association, we've identified 5 Hello Girls who are buried in national cemeteries. And the reason they're buried in national cemeteries, although they were not accorded that right until the 1970s, at which point most of them had already passed away. Um, but we did discover that 5 women have been married to military men and were buried alongside their partners in a national cemetery. And so we are working with the NCA, the National Cemetery Administration, to have their headstones updated, have new headstones installed that mention their service and properly document their service. And we're working to find women buried in private cemeteries. So folks may not be aware, but the Veterans Administration or the VA will pay for a headstone for any veteran who's in an unmarked grave in a private cemetery. And so we're working again to find descendant community, because we certainly don't want to impose on family. We want family to be a part of the discussion and have their voices in this conversation. And so I'm through the genealogy work, finding the women, finding where they're buried, finding any descendants who can then partner with us to make the requests of the VA to have a headstone and then have that installed. So that's a ongoing process. And we did honor one such hello girl. I believe it was just in August in California. I wasn't there myself, but we were able to do that. And her grave had been unmarked. And so it's somebody whose service had not only been discounted, but in some ways she had been forgotten.
Right.
And so now she has this marker, which, you know, decades from now will be remembered as part of her service to our nation.
I find that very powerful. There's a gentleman, he works for the ABMC. He was in charge. He was the superintendent of the Wazane Cemetery in France. His name is Bert Cloud, and he frequently posts about some of the fallen that he was with during his time at that cemetery, and he would say their names, and then he would always say, you know, we speak their names, and I always found that very powerful, and I thank him for having said that, because I've shamelessly stolen it. But when we speak their names, and when we have a headstone with a name, and we say it and we look at it, like that person continues to live on, and they stay in our memory, you know, that much longer. So I think this is such a wonderful thing to hear.
Well, if I could jump in on
Yes,
this,
please.
what I find remarkable since May of this year, we have honored 2 without a grave marker, and we're coming up on redefining a grave marker with a medallion for Carolyn's grandmother, Grace Banker. And, you know, it's started kind of by accident when I joined the group. And I was asked, where was your grandmother buried? And I said, well, I know, but it's in an unmarked grave, which I don't know why. You know, that's part of history has been lost to me. And it's like a spark was ignited within the World War I Commission, the Doughboy Foundation groups. And we you know, went down this marvelous path of going back and recognizing through these grave marker dedications with military honors. And I never would have dreamt that this would have happened for my grandmother if it wasn't for these groups that have stepped up. And the NCA, of course, was part of that as well. And then the August one that Diane mentioned, the ceremony in August, was in Sonoma County, California. And that happened because the the community theater was going to put on the Hello Girls musical. There really is a Hello Girls musical. And the director was doing research, and she discovered that Juliette Cortial Smith is buried in Sonoma County, California, in an unmarked grave. And she reached out and found the World War I Centennial Commission and got the ball rolling with Jim Barris, who's the documentary filmmaker and works for the NCA. Mm-hmm. And that was number 2 in August. And then coming up, so in less than 6 months, we have, you know, honored 3 women, 2 of them unmarked graves. And then Carolyn's grandmother, I won't steal all your story there, Carolyn, you pick up.
That's all right, we can jump in.
Yeah, but it's fabulous.
Mm-hmm. It has been an amazing journey. Really, it's interesting to think it was a year ago, just about a year ago, we met with you and all that we've accomplished. And it's interesting because when we started, we were focused on, we have to get our senator co-sponsors. Okay, now we're working on the House, and that was our focus. But part of the journey is that, as I said, like as Catherine said, putting together the ceremony, because we are discovering that these 223 women that were numbers actually have names and identities now. We know where they're buried, most of them. We know that many or most of them have no recognition on their headstones. And as Catherine and Diane have mentioned, that there are some in unmarked graves coming up in a couple weeks. So we are recognizing my grandmother's service, and that's Chief Operator Grace Banker. And, I knew she was buried in Brooklyn at Greenwood Cemetery, and I've known about that for years. But, we got there a handful of times throughout my lifetime. And now that this whole story has come to life, I realize I'm looking at her headstone the last time I was there, which was like 5 years ago. And I see, it's just her name, her date of birth, death date, and she's right next to and right there with my grandfather on that same marker. But there's literally no space on that stone for any other recognition. And I know that there is the bronze medallion was an option. And so, of course, through Jim Theris, who we've mentioned, who works for the NCA, and he was definitely pushing, get the medallion so we can recognize her. But we've taken it a step further as as we've been pushing for more recognition. We got in touch with the cemetery, and they said, oh, well, we need to do one step further. So now they are going to honor her with a marker with a plaque in addition to the Veterans Medallion. And that's coming up, as I said, in 2 weeks. And it's been quite a journey. And and one other thing I'll add in this process is, when the women came back, they were all excited. They were told they were in the Army. And of course, as we know what happened with that story. But the Doughboys all came back and they got their, of course, recognition. They all got victory medals. They got benefits, and the women did not get those. So a few months ago, it was, somebody said, you might want to apply for the victory medal for your grandmother. And so it was in July, I submitted paperwork. And fortunately, my grandmother saved lots of artifacts, lots of letters. So I had information to prove her identity when she began her service, when she finished. And so in a couple months, I heard back from my congressman's office, and that was Representative Pappas, and they were so excited about it. And when they heard the real story and the full story, they said, we need to have a special event for that. So we had a nice little ceremony last Thursday on October 3rd, and they presented me with her victory medal, which I accepted under, from her service. So it now belongs to our family. So it's just amazing how far we've come. And I really hope, my wish is to see that all these women, that we find, I would love to find all the descendants, because that has been a tricky thing. I really thought we'd find more. Keep going, Diane, we'll get there. And also just seeing that every single one of those women is recognized with a marker on her grave honoring her service. So it's been quite an adventure and just an honor to be a part of this whole group here.
If I could add,
Yeah.
the NCA has also embraced this fully to make it part of their mission to focus on making sure that the U.S. Army Signal Corps women, the Hello Girls, are recognized. This is up there in their top 5 list, if you want to call it that. But to shift gears a little bit, if I could add to this discovery conversation, I think one of the big reasons for it was when you work with a Senate, they are willing to talk to anybody not just their constituents. Now the House is different, and I was told because of the staff sizing is different, they just don't have the bandwidth to talk to just anybody who comes down the hallway.
Okay.
So we had to tackle the problem of how do we communicate with these House of Representatives that are not our own, and because if you write to their website, it clearly states what's your address, what's your zip code. Oh, so sorry, if you're not within our district, you won't hear from us. We might not. I can't say they won't read it, but you just won't have a two-way conversation.
Right.
So one of our other team members, Ryan, who said, we need to make a flyer. And it's literally, a piece of paper and we made a summary statement about the Hello Girls. We had an impact statement about, like, they made 26 million calls. They influenced the passage of the 19th Amendment, things like that. And then this is where the genealogy really kicked in. And we were forced to do this in order to develop a connection between 1 or 10 Hello Girls to that district for that representative in order to get a foot in the door. And so that's where this research team that we've been talking about was developed. And we all jumped in and did what we could in terms of finding out their backgrounds, their history. And, instead of looking at them as a group of women, now we lifted the veil and looked at them individually. And as we've been saying, their personal histories, what we knew maybe before they enlisted, but definitely post World War I, it was fascinating. Lots of stories. Now, there were some women that went and they served, they came back and kind of disappeared. They just went back to their life, and nothing more was, recorded or left in history for us. But because we had that, I'll say, inconvenience with the House reaching those staffers that we needed to talk to, the Veterans Affairs staffer, it forced us to go down this path of new discovery, and it sent us down many different tangents that are now still benefiting these women in our mission of recognition, not just the gold medal, but beyond that. And we've enjoyed it thoroughly. And so we would get the flyers, and whoever was available, because we come to Washington about every 6 weeks, a group of us. Fortunately, I live here, so I just had to fight the traffic on the Beltway to get there, type of thing. And we would walk the halls, going door to door, walk in, you give your little spiel, and you hand over the flyer. But just before they grabbed the flyer and took possession of it, you said, wait a minute, I like the Veterans Affairs staffer's card, because you need that email in order to have that communication going on. So we made an even trade, and Representative Cleaver was talking about it being bipartisan, and it is. But there was a couple occasions where the folks at the front desk in those offices said, one guy said to me, what's Representative Cleaver? Is he Democrat or Republican? And for a moment, I couldn't remember to save my life. And I didn't want to say something and make a mistake. And I thought, I just don't know what to say. And I finally said, you know what? This bill is bipartisan. That's your answer, And the guy goes, oh, that's good. I'm like, no, it is a bipartisan bill. But we got our foot in the door. We got an email, and that began our email conversation with each individual office as our effort to get the co-sponsorships. So it's been, it was a lot of work at times, but it's proved to be very fruitful and extremely exciting to learn about these women and their time that they lived in and what they did with their lives afterwards. Because as Diane was saying, a lot of them are quite remarkable, and they were very adventurous for their time. And it's a great story overall. And I'm just thrilled that I answered that question that helped get the ball rolling for these women. I answered the question about my grandmother's, where is she buried? And she's in an unmarked grave. And I am so happy that it has cascaded down for all these Hello Girls, that this is going to happen for them.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And I apologize for the question here. Have we been able to identify all 223 of them? Do we at least like have names?
Yeah, we have names
Okay.
from the Army of the 223 who served in France. Again, I'm pretty, being a veteran myself, I will tell you those who don't deploy also serve.
Hmm.
So I think it's important that we've had this conversation as a group, particularly the women who are in what we call the seventh group. That was the group that was on board the ship, ready to ship. We consider them to have served and being veterans as well,
Of course.
rather than just the 223 who made it to France. So also think it's important to note that many of those women stayed in France after the war ended, after the armistice, to
Yes.
continue to serve as communication specialists and interpreters for the peace talks. So while the doughboys got to come home, they did not, and so they remained and continued to serve. So yeah, we have everyone's name. There are some challenges with finding. Some of the women were born overseas and returned after the armistice.
Hmm.
So they had been born in Belgium or France and returned there. A number were French Canadian and returned to Canada. One woman, I believe, actually ended up dying in World War II during the German occupation of Paris. So we have some documents showing that the other Hello Girls had kept in touch with her and lost touch with her during the Second World War. Um, so and then somebody else entered the convent in St. Louis, Missouri, and we don't know where she's at. So I'm hopeful we're going to hit like 80 or 90% of knowing where folks are. I think 100% is really aspirational. Of course, I'm not giving up, but there are some challenges. Again, they would live lives of adventure. One woman, I believe, died in Singapore in the 1930s. So it's it's remarkable. And one woman, and I super apologize. I'm trying to track down her name, but she actually went back to France, married a French naval officer, was stationed in Oran in northern Africa, and was taken POW prisoner along with her 10-year-old son when the Germans took North Africa. And when the American troops came to liberate her camp, her younger brother was among the soldiers who served, who was in that unit to liberate that camp. And so if you were writing the screenplay, people would go, no, that's just too far-fetched, can't go there. But sure enough, her younger brother, who was, younger by a number of years, of course,
Mhm.
but he was among those who liberated the camp that she and her son were held captive. So
Wow, what rich lives.
Hmm.
Wow. Wow,
amazing.
what rich, amazing lives. Um, it I've got one question here, the final question of the evening. We're gonna like pivot to something kind of like totally different here. But um, if anyone here knows the process of like, fingers crossed, we're gonna find the co-sponsors that we need. The act is gonna pass, and we're gonna get this Congressional Gold Medal for the Hello Girls. So once it passes in Congress, what happens there? Like, can anyone speak to like what, like,
So once it passes in Congress, the president has to sign it, and then it becomes law.
okay,
Then there's a design process that will go on as long as the process goes on, because there's a bunch of different people with a dog in that fight. But once it's finally designed and then it's actually created, then there's a ceremony. Now, it should be pointed out that the Congressional Gold Medal isn't a medal that you wear like a military medal or a service medal.
mhm,
It's actually made for display someplace, but typically copies of it are made and they can be sold by the U.S. Mint, for example.
Okay.
But that's basically the process. Once the legislation passes, once it's signed, it becomes law. Then they go into a design process. Like anything else with the government, nothing happens fast, so it's going to be a year or two to get that done.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. Like, so this is probably going to take a couple of years. And do you know who'll have a say in the design process?
I don't know exactly who that is, but there's a number of people have a dog in that fight. But that's discoverable, that all the people that are involved. I believe that the Mint is involved, and of course Congress itself is involved. So it's a process, and like most government processes, it's not a simple one. But the key thing is that once the law is passed, then it's going to happen. It's just a question of how long it takes.
All right. Awesome. So I think for our for listeners here and if folks, if you're listening, do spread the word, tell your friends, do please get on the phone and email and call your representative, call your senator. Well, the senators, they're all set, but your representatives for sure, get on the phone, leave a message with them. Let's get it passed. And let's get these Hello Girls the recognition they deserve. As we do head into the evening here, folks, any final thoughts that you want to share?
Well, I must say for myself, it's hard to believe that a year ago we sat down and had this podcast conversation together, and it was my very, very first time, and I barely listened to podcasts, so this has been quite exciting. And then suddenly a year later, we're doing it again and talking about we're on the edge of great success to honor all of these women of the U.S. Army Signal Corps in World War I. Another thing I never would have imagined. So I am thrilled, and I really appreciate it, Mike, that you invited us back like this to update everybody. But it's true. It's very easy. The World War I Centennial Commission has a toolkit that is still out there. It's still active. WW1cc.org/Hello Girls. And it breaks it down by state, and it'll give you the status of your representative, whether they co-sponsor or not. Obviously, if they haven't, you click on the name. We provide you language to start your email to them, and you add your 2 cents and hit send, and you're done. You can also make a phone call to that office. They're, of course, at their local offices right now. The whole Congress is on recess, so you'd have to call your local office. But we still need 10, where we could use more than 10. It would be a terrific honor to go above 290. We don't have to stop there.
Right.
But we really, really want this badly. We want it for our grandmothers and our great aunts. And World War I is fading in our collective memory, our historical memory as a country. And we need to keep it there, in the forefront. And what the Commission, the Doughboy Foundation, has done with the National World War I Park in D.C. is stunning. It's fabulous. That 60-foot bronze sculpture that has been installed and dedicated back in September is truly the crown jewel of the park. And it's worth the visit, the effort to get down there. And this has just been for me, it's been an honor of a lifetime to participate with the commission and the foundation and all these wonderful folks that I've been able to work with and meet and collaborate with. We've had a lot of fun. We've worked really hard, and good golly, we're almost there. It is fabulous. So thank you very much.
Great way to close it out. And I can't wait. I can't wait. Well, folks, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy evenings to come on the podcast. This is going to get out just as soon as I can turn it around so we can get that word out. And I look forward to a flurry of emails when saying we did it. Coming here soon. So
we'll go dance.
I want to see the congressman dance.
Yeah, we're going to dance.
I'm so excited about that. All right, folks.
Thanks very much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
For all of the wonderful folks listening in the United States, here is the call to action once again. The link to support a Congressional Gold Medal for the World War I Hello Girls webpage will be in the episode notes. please point your web browser to that page, find your state's congressional representative, and follow the instructions on how to contact them about the Congressional Gold Medal for the Hello Girls. This is not a partisan issue in Congress. It is simply a case of making your representatives aware of the Hello Girls and how much they deserve this long-awaited recognition. And if you find out that your representative has already co-sponsored the bill, send them a note. Tell them thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Talk to you again soon. Take care.